Boxing truth here. We talk about Anthony Joshua's IBF mandatory situation. Now, a lot of speculation about Anthony Joshua's next opponent. Joshua is the man in boxing right now. He's his star is just rising and rising. After that Klitschko win, his life has changed. This guy is not gonna be able to go anywhere without people all up in his business. So now he's one of the faces in boxing, the money man in the heavyweight division, the man everyone's going to be wanting to fight, be gunning for, as Joshua's the unified champion. And he's got a lot of options for his next fight. A lot of options. There's mandatories, there's the Klitschko rematch, there's Pulev, there's Ortiz, there's Wilder down the road, Joseph Parker down the road. There's so many guys out there for Anthony Joshua to fight. And I have to, respect Joshua's dedication to the sport, his goals, his plans to try to dominate the division like Klitschko did before him for the next 8 to 10 years. I applaud that dedication. He's fully committed. I just wish Tyson Fury was just as committed as Anthony Joshua. And that fight is being built for next year. Fury has to get his shit together, get his license back, and that fight could happen in the spring of next year. But for Joshua's next opponent, I'm gonna put my 2 cents in of what I feel it's gonna happen. It's always fun to predict the promoter's moves in the sport to see if you can get it right. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. But I feel that Joshua and his team, Eddie Hearn, right now they're obligated to give Klitschko a rematch. If Klitschko wants to do the rematch, the fight's going to happen. But that means that Anthony Joshua is going to get stripped of his IBF belt. But Eddie Hearn was talking about perhaps doing a deal with the IBF. Now Eddie Hearn's going to feel that, Joshua's the cash cow. He brings so much money to the table. Why would the sanctioning bodies not want to collect those significant sanctioning fees every time Joshua fights? But the thing is, the IBF is getting criticized by some fans. But the thing is, I don't understand why they're getting criticized. They're consistent. That's the thing you can say about the IBF. Yeah, some of the decisions they make is head scratching, like them stripping Tyson Fury after the fight with Klitschko. But the thing is, the IBF, they follow their rules. They're the only organization in boxing, recognized sanctioning body, that actually enforces their mandatories. So, in a sense, the IBF has been good for boxing because fighters like Sergey Lipnitz or Charles Martin and Errol Spence can get title shots. I mean, without the IBF, we wouldn't be getting a fight between Kell Brook versus Errol Spence. The IBF, they're the only sanctioning body that follows the rules consistently. So, you got to give credit to the IBF when it comes to that area because they don't give a shit who you are. They don't give a shit how big a name you are. They don't give a shit how much money you bring to the table. They're going to enforce a mandatory on your ass when it's supposed to happen. Now, Joshua, he won his IBF strap last April against Charles Martin. It's been a year since he's had that title and he hasn't made a mandatory defense. So, the IBF are simply following the rules. It's been 12 months. They give heavyweights 12 months to make one mandatory defense. So you have to make one mandatory defense a year if you're the IBF champion in the heavyweight division. It's been 12 months. Joshua just beat Vladimir Klitschko. It's now May of 2017. So now the IBF wants Joshua to, fulfill his obligation, his mandatory obligation, and that's Karat Pulev. He's the mandatory. It will be Joshua's first mandatory defense with the IBF. But the thing is, the game has changed for Hearn and Joshua. Now it's not about fulfilling mandatories. It's not about uh, title belts. Right now, Joshua is one of the few fighters in boxing that transcends the belts. And if Eddie Hearn can't convince the IBF to take a significant sanctioning fee and do a step aside deal or allow Pulev to fight another rated contender for an interim IBF strap, then the IBF is going to strip them. They're not they're not going to allow that, what Eddie Hearn is talking about. They don't recognize rematch clauses. They don't do any step aside deals. The only thing a champion could do to avoid mandatories from the IBF is to request an exemption. But once the IBF sends those letters out to get the negotiations rolling, it's too late. You have to go through with the mandatory defense. So my prediction is, if Klitschko wins the rematch, if he asks for the rematch, the IBF will strip Anthony Joshua. It will be the same exact situation that Tyson Fury went to, because he was contractually obligated to give Klitschko a rematch. So the same shit's gonna happen to Joshua. The IBF's not gonna give a shit that Joshua is bringing all his money to the table. They turned down a significant sanctioning fee with Fury in the Klitschko rematch that never happened. So I expect the IBF to do the same shit. If Klitschko decides not to take the rematch, then I could see Joshua fighting Pulev to defend his IBF strap, since what other fighters out there right now that's really that big, or that really makes sense. Tony Bellew could make sense since that's an in-house fight, but I'm not sure that fight will happen. It looks like Hearn will rather match Bellew with one of the other champions and maybe do a unification, maybe Bellew against Parker or Wilder. But Joshua and his team, they're gonna be about what's the best financial package from now on. It's not gonna be about mandatories, because the thing is, it's just too damn hard to be undisputed champion. It's just too hard. Like, I'm pretty much over needing to see an undisputed champ, because it's too damn difficult. There's too many mandatory obligations. There's too many title belts. There's just too many obstacles. Golovkin had the best chance to be undisputed, and he passed to wait on Canelo Alvarez or the Danilo Chavez Jr. winner. That was the best chance to see the undisputed champion. Now I don't see we're ever gonna see an undisputed champion, because the IBF are consistently follow they consistently follow the rules and enforce mandatories more than any other sanctioning body. They actually go by the book. The other sanctioning bodies don't. WBO does it when they want to. WC does it when they want to. The WBA, they do it when they want to. So that's the thing. Some of these sanctioning bodies will play ball with these big name fighters, but the IBF does not. And when you had the IBF strap, it's problematic, because every 9 months you have to make a mandatory defense if you're not a heavyweight. And every 12 months, if you're a heavyweight, you have to make a mandatory defense if you're the IBF champion. So Bob Arum has a point when he calls some boxing fans boxing schmucks because they want to see the undisputed champion. But the thing is, promoters don't give a shit about undisputed champions. They only care about what's the biggest money fights out there for their client. What's in the best interest of that promotional company and that fighter. Where can we make the most money? Where can we get the biggest bottom line? Where can we get the biggest crowds to come through to see my client, the fights? That's what it's about for the promoters. They don't give a shit about undisputed. They only give a shit about the bottom line and the big money fights and the viewership and the ticket sales. But the thing is, Joshua can make money fighting anybody. doing decent numbers against Brazil, Eric Molina, numbers that drew the roof against Klitschko. So it doesn't really matter in that area. Joshua will make money fighting anybody, but at the same time, they're gonna opt for the most lucrative option on the table, and that doesn't necessarily mean that will be correct a Pulev fight. So if Klitschko wants to rematch, Joshua's gonna get stripped of the IBF belt. That's just the way it is. In the WBA, I'm sure Joshua can have them play ball. They can have Eddie Hearn and Joshua can make WBA, work with them, prolong the mandatory defense with Ortiz, so they could do the rematch with Klitschko or do a defense against Pulev, and then maybe fight Ortiz next year. Or the plan is to fight Fury the next spring at Wembley. So it's not about being undisputed champions for these promoters and even some fighters. It's just too damn difficult. It's too many things, too many obstacles in the way. But, some fans are just going to have to accept that being undisputed is not very, it's not very possible for many fighters. It's very difficult. There still hasn't been one in quite some time. And with the way the sanctioning bodies act, how they maneuver and how they throw obstacles at fighters to become undisputed, it's time for fans to start getting used to that idea that we just have to go by who's the lineal guy, who's the man who beat the man. And right now, Joshua and Fury are the guys who beat the man, and they need to fight each other to determine who is the lineal champion. Because at the end of the day, that's all we really could go by. We can't go by who's undisputed. We have to go by who's the lineal champion. And right now, Tyson Fury is still lineal. And Joshua is the number one heavyweight. Joshua will most likely fight Klitschko in a rematch. And it won't be about mandatory defenses. From here on out, it's going to be about what's the biggest fights out there. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.